coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
All right, let's do it on this Friday, November the 10th, 2023. Good to have you all with us. All right, coming up in this show, Page versus the Prince, our Week 10 edition of NFL Picks. We'll do a recap of the Thursday night football game between the Bears and the Panthers. And we'll have some odds and ends to tie things up. But we begin today with a story I kind of got some wind of last night and then woke up to it today. Sam Yarnell is here. He's not the story. I promise you, because he wouldn't do anything as stupid as what Lane Kiffin has allegedly done. At least I don't think he would.
Way too much credit. Way too much credit.
All right, fair enough. The question that's at the top of the screen sums it up. What was he thinking? So for people that don't know, Lane Kiffin is potentially in some hot water after a heated exchange with one of his former players has surfaced. Kiffin was taped, by the way, without his knowledge, I believe, by former player DeSanto Rollins, who was apparently going through some mental health issues and wanted to take some time away and kind of get himself right. Now, there's some talk about the fact that, you know, that Kiffin wanted him to sort of change positions. That had something to do with it. Bottom line, the audio of Rollins meeting with Kiffin has now surfaced. And whenever audio surfaces, it's generally not going to be good for the person on one end of it. This is the conversation that Lane Kiffin had with defensive tackle DeSanto Rollins. Take a listen.
If you would have come here when you kept getting messages, the head coach wants to talk to you, and you saying, I'm not ready to talk to him.
I wasn't.
What world do you live in?
I don't see why you gotta be disrespectful, honestly.
Get out of here. Go, you're off the team. You're done. See ya.
Because
See ya. Go. And guess what? We can kick you off the team. So go read your rights about mental health. We can kick you off the team for not showing up. When the head coach asks to meet with you and you don't show up for weeks, okay, we can remove you from the team. It's called being a pussy. It's called hiding behind and not showing up to work.
Wow. So this isn't going to end well for Lane Kiffin, you would think, but who knows? These days, everybody seems to get away with something. There was a lot more said in the conversation than just that clip that Front Office Sports, by the way, released. Credit to them for putting it out there. There's other areas of this that I think are very disturbing for the NCAA. And one in particular, and I don't know how many people are going to talk about this, Sam, but one of the things that came out of this is he kept referring to DeSanto Rollins playing for the team as a job and him as the boss. This isn't the NFL. This is not a worker boss situation. It's a student athlete coach situation. And if Lane Kiffin wants to stand there and talk about being a boss and basically this guy being his employee, well, then he should be getting paid. To me, that's one of the more disturbing things to come out of this that I don't hear anybody talking about, is that Lane Kiffin's talking about himself as a boss and DeSanto Rollins being an employee and coming to work. No, it's an extracurricular activity. I mean, I don't know, man. This looks bad for Ole Miss in a lot of different ways.
So it looks really bad for Lane Kiffin, and I'll get to that in a second. But just on the job thing really quick, I think it's important that we recognize the state of college sports in America today, right? And I'll disagree with you on that, Jason. It is a job for these student athletes, especially in the day and age of NIL money. And you have just, especially at a school like Ole Miss on a football team, I guarantee you that every player on that team is being paid at least something by an NIL partnership deal. So it is a job in effect. I understand that part of it, but there are so many things wrong with what Lane Kiffin said, part of which is the fact that he's materially incorrect. As much as he can kick the player off the team, he himself does not have the right to revoke their scholarship. And because of mental health, the scholarship can't be revoked. So kicking the player off the team effectively just costs the boosters and the university money. And that's not good for Lane Kiffin's job status at the University of Mississippi, because now not only has he offended football fans, the player, and I imagine members of the team, he's also gotten in the wrong with the boosters, the athletic department, all of that as well. So Lane Kiffin put himself in some very hot water here. I will say that I think that situations like this are going to become more and more common in the day and age of college sports that we live in. When you have 18 to 22, and I mean, you look at Bo Nix, okay, 25, Stetson Bennett, 26, whatever. You have these guys who are very, very young relative to life, getting paid inordinate amounts of money that most of whom never could have imagined having that much that quickly at that age for playing a child's game. It changes the relationships between them and the coaches, between them and the athletic department. It all becomes different. I think this is a situation that we're going to continue to see more and more, when in reality, these players are so young and these human beings are so young that mental health needs to be the most important, most considered thing, especially when you're preparing athletes to be professionals. Because what's the most important part about being a professional athlete off the field? It's all mental. It's all the mental strength, how you prepare, how you go about your day-to-day. So not a great look for Lane Kiffin. Bad for college football, but I can't say that I can see this going away and us not seeing it again across the sport.
Here's the thing for me. First of all, I don't think everybody gets NIL money. That's the first thing. And the other thing I'm trying to figure out is why this isn't getting more coverage. I was texting with a prominent college football writer this morning and having this conversation with him. And he said, I don't understand why this isn't getting more coverage than, say, the Jim Harbaugh story. Why is Jim Harbaugh's story getting so much coverage and this is getting so little? And I think there's a point to be made here. Mental health has become an enormous issue in this country. Rightly or wrongly, it has now worked its way into the workplace. It's worked itself into athletics. We've now seen professional athletes that have taken breaks. We've seen it in Major League Baseball, hockey, football, basketball, guys who need to step away, that are being honest enough with themselves and with their teammates and their organizations to say, I got to step away. I'm not right mentally for whatever reason it may be. Suicide, self-harm, all of this sort of works its way into it. Now, there's some lawsuit, 10 million, 30 million, whatever it's going to be. I'm not going to speak on the merits of that. But for a college institution where mental health is so important in our universities, it's so important in our college campuses, I don't know how Ole Miss escapes or is able to walk away from this situation without some sort of significant punishment for Lane Kiffin when you're talking about this sort of situation. And that's what I'm trying to figure out, is what's the next move now that this audio is out there. Everything changes with audio. Everything changes with video. The reason Ray Rice never played another game in the NFL was because there was video of him dragging this woman who's now his wife around an elevator and beating the crap out of her. If there hadn't been video, Ray Rice survives. Video, pictures change everything. Audio changes everything. I want to see how this changes this story. And do you think it's more significant than the Harbaugh story, Sam?
So a couple of different things here. First of all, the Harbaugh thing. They're apples and oranges to me, right? You're talking because Harbaugh and that situation was multiple people acting together, representing the football department, going against the integrity of the game, explicitly breaking NCAA rules. Lane Kiffin did a horrible, horrible thing. And he said terrible things to this human being, and human beings should never say things like that. I don't care if you're the president of the United States talking to a nobody. You shouldn't say things like that. I don't think that he incorporated other people in his orchestration the way that Harbaugh did with Connor Stallions, obviously. And it wasn't as intricately carried out. It was one instance of Lane Kiffin getting mad, which is why I think that a simple firing is going to be all that we see come of this. He's going to be let go. Mississippi will come out and say, he doesn't represent the university or the athletic department and how we feel about our student athletes and so on and so forth. All of the players will get a nice raise from, by the way, with NIL stuff, like now that we're 5 years into NIL money, every school has every player at every school, especially on a bigger team like the football team at Ole Miss, has an NIL deal, right? So like there are these small collectives that are made as nonprofit
I've heard
institutions.
Of the collectives. Yep.
Yeah, so my school, the Hofstra University, small school, has one for the basketball team because that's the big sport there. And so all the basketball players get some rev share to some extent. I guarantee you that they'll all get a nice little raise and be made comfortable from here on out. And it'll be a big wake-up call for Ole Miss, and things will change, and they'll bring in some coach who hires a mental strength coordinator and all that kind of thing. And they'll do all the right PR things. Will it change across the landscape of college sports is kind of the big question that I think we're trying to ask ourselves. And I just don't see it, Jason. Like we're only progressing to the point where college athletes get paid more money, not less. It's not like it's getting diversified more evenly. The better athletes are just simply being paid a ton more money. And you're just going to get more and more of this to the point where eventually I wouldn't be surprised if we see college athletes holding out the way NBA players do.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I don't think there's going to be a lot of change. I think football in general is slow to change, and there's a certain mentality that goes with the sport that I think there's something to be said for. I think you're actually right about that. All right, stick around. We're coming back. We got a lot more to do on this edition of the Sports Wrap, this Friday edition of the show. Plenty to talk about as it relates to the NFL. Thursday night football. Oh, yes, there was a game last night. Yeah, we're going to talk about it. I promise you. Don't go anywhere. We'll get into the Panthers and Bears. There's actually some interesting things to talk about from this game and kind of reaching off of this game. We'll get into it as we continue on this Friday edition of the Sports Wrap. All right, continuing with our Friday edition of the show, Page versus the Prince coming up in a few minutes, odds and ends as well. Sam, we had a Thursday night football game last night. It was a doozy. Bears win their third of the season. Second straight on Prime Video, by the way. I think they like playing there. They beat the Panthers 16-13. Say this, Tyson Bagent was a Division II quarterback last year in college football. And the dude went 2-2 in his 4-game run as the quarterback of the Chicago Bears. I don't know what happens for the rest of this guy's career, if he gets another chance to play, either with the Bears or somewhere else, more likely somewhere else, for reasons we'll get into. But pretty cool. Yeah, it's a pretty cool story for a guy to get 4 games starting in the NFL who was playing in Division II last year. And he actually went 2-2 and played halfway decent.
Yeah, what? It was 10 months ago. He was playing against the Colorado School of Mines. And now he's beaten the Carolina Panthers on primetime Thursday night football. Impressive stuff. No, good for Tyler Bagent. This game sucked. This game was awful. It was hard to watch. If I wasn't so heavily invested in it, I would have turned it off much sooner. Yeah, what a terrible... Like, they got to figure out these primetime games. They got to change the flex rules or something. Because, like, we should not have had to watch the Bears on primetime 2 weeks already through the first 10 weeks of the season. My gosh.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of issues as far as the games are concerned. I talked about that yesterday on the show after you had left us. But there's more interesting pressing questions that come out of this game. And, these two teams are inexorably linked when you think about the draft. Right now, the Chicago Bears have the first pick and the fifth pick in the NFL draft, thanks to the Carolina Panthers. Regardless of what you think of Justin Fields, if you're the Chicago Bears and you wind up with the number one pick, don't you have to go and get Caleb Williams? I mean, I don't know how, as an organization, if we all agree that Caleb Williams is going to be the top pick in the draft, which I think most of us do, if Caleb Williams is going to be the top pick of the draft, and you're the Chicago Bears, and this is the sample size you have for Justin Fields so far, unless he goes out in the final 7 games of the season and tears up the town, how are you doing anything other than drafting Caleb Williams at this point?
So I've got something to say about Caleb Williams. I am so tired of him, and he's not even in the league yet. I'm out on Caleb Williams. I'm done with Caleb Williams. Never really thought that he was all that at USC, considering whenever he plays an actual good team, he doesn't really perform. He, in my opinion, he's going to be like maybe as good as Trevor Lawrence in the league. They're the exact same quarterback to me.
A lot of people compare him to Patrick Mahomes.
Right. Yeah. It does not make sense. Mediocre at best to me, and his ego is going to be what holds him back more than anything. This is a kid who is 20-something years old asking for owner stake in an NFL franchise to even be drafted there. The ego is out of control on this kid. And quite frankly, I understand it. We grew up in the same area around the same time. It is a very common mentality in this part of the country. You see it in DC basketball players all the time. My goodness, Kevin Durant, exemplis gratis. Caleb Williams is a DMV basketball player in a football player's body, and that emotion is going to single-handedly wreck his career. It kind of already is. It's tanking his draft stock.
See, I got to be honest, I don't see it that way. I saw this whole thing that was floated about the ownership thing. And you know what? It's like Jay-Z says, I'm a business man. I don't have any issue with guys trying to figure out what they can and what they can't get. Because Caleb Williams' career might wind up being 10 years, might wind up being 2 years, might wind up being 4 years. You don't know. You have to capitalize. We can begrudge these guys all they want, but it sounds like sour grapes when we do. Because if you had the skill that Caleb Williams had, if you were in the top, tiny slice of percentage of the people that can do a particular thing as good as Caleb Williams can do it, whether you agree or disagree, we all know he's going to be a top 1 or top 2 pick. So somebody thinks he is at the very tiny slice of guys that could do something the best of anybody in the world. I will never begrudge guys trying to go out and get their bag if they have the opportunity to do so. Not at all.
I'll do it because he doesn't have the opportunity to do so. It's very clearly written in the NFL rules that no player... Patrick Mahomes tried to do it. Patrick Mahomes is a guy, when he was renegotiating his contract, who I would argue, sure, he deserves an ownership stake in the Chiefs. And the NFL stepped in and said, no, you're not allowed to do that. And then 2 years later, Caleb Williams, before he's even drafted, comes out and says it. It's one thing if, like you said, you're a businessman like Patrick Mahomes is. Right now, Caleb Williams is a businessman. Like Jay-Z said, he's a businessman, not a businessman. Caleb Williams is not made yet. We're making this guy out. We're doing the Bryce Young thing with this guy. My God, we're making him out to be this hands-down number 1 overall pick, and he's going to come into the league. Did the same thing with Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence hasn't done anything. Trevor Lawrence has thrown 9 touchdowns through 10 weeks this season. These college quarterbacks who we revere revere in college seldom work out in the NFL. You look at a guy like CJ Stroud, who's having massive success in the NFL. When he was in college, everyone wrote him off. Oh, who are his receivers? Marvin Harrison Jr., Jackson Smith and Jigma, that insane Ohio State wide receiver core that was stacked, Terry McLaurin. And now CJ Stroud has come out and shown himself as obviously the best rookie quarterback in that class.
Yep.
College football is looked at so differently, in my opinion, than it should be when you're talking about NFL talent. And that mistake is being made again with Caleb Williams.
Yeah, see, I don't have a problem with it because college football has basically become the minor leagues of the NFL. It is a professional game, and guys are getting paid, and guys are being compensated, and there is free agency, also known as the transfer portal. It basically, there is very little distinction now between what's played on Saturday and what's played on Sunday, despite, other than the fact that there's a lot more teams. There isn't really that big of a distinction to me, or a difference with the money that can be made. I see Caleb Williams doing Wendy's commercials, for crying out loud, with other, former Heisman Trophy winners and other former USC guys. I don't have a problem with it. And I don't have a problem with a guy trying to tap in and find out, was he wrong? Is he misunderstood about what the rules are? Maybe, but I don't have a problem. I'm not going to hold it against him for asking. And I've watched the guy play a number of times. I'm sure you have as well. And all of this stuff is subjective. We could put 10 people in a room, show them the same video, and everybody's going to look and see something different. But I see a guy that could play the position at a high level, highly athletic, very strong, very big.
No doubt.
And I do think he has the potential to be more Patrick Mahomes than Trevor Lawrence. We'll find out when he gets to the next level, but I'll never begrudge a guy for trying to take a shot at trying to get whatever money is available to him.
To your original question, though, if I'm the Bears at number 1 overall tomorrow,
you're sticking with Justin Fields?
I'm going Maserati Marv. I got to go Maserati Marv at 1 because you don't know that he'll still be there at 5.
I agree. I understand what you're saying. And if the decision is to keep Justin Fields, then you go Harrison, or you trade number 1 to a team that wants a quarterback, get some picks in return, maybe go down to 2 or 3. If you think that means getting Harrison, maybe you go and do that, because they've got so many options with 1 and 5 as of now on the table. Right. They've got so many options that are going to be at their disposal. And with 5 or 6 quarterbacks potentially going in the first round of this draft, there's going to be a lot of teams calling to try and make moves. There's going to be a lot of wheeling and dealing potentially in that first round of the NFL draft.
I just can't get right now, today, in 2023, with what we've seen of him so far in his career, I can't get on the bus of the Bears need to just punt on Justin Fields and draft a new franchise quarterback.
Thing is, he's not an Eberflus guy. Eberflus inherited him.
Right.
So that,
I think
this
management group, to be had there.
Yeah, and the management group, they inherited this guy. So, at the end of the day, if there's not enough of a body of work of success, and you've got potentially one of the best crops of quarterbacks, and the year after isn't looking as good when people are trying to project ahead as to the quarterbacks that are going to be available in the draft the following year, you may have to use this one and go get a quarterback. All right, Page versus the Prince is coming up. It's right around the corner. We'll get into some of the top stories of the day in odds and ends. But who do we like in Week 10 of the NFL? Stick around. We're telling you next. Continuing on this Friday edition of the show, we'll wrap it up with odds and ends in a couple of minutes. But it's Friday, and that can only mean one thing. Ah, yes. Page versus the Prince, NFL Week 10 picks. Hopefully some good ones. Sam was 3-1 last week. I was 2-2. First time in a while Sam's beating me, it feels like. All right, Sam, you're up, ladies and gentlemen. Page versus the Prince, Week 10.
All right, Jason, start things off with a matchup that feels like I've been talking about for weeks. Two teams, both one of whom coming off of a bye and having lost 3 straight going into that bye, the other of whom is seemingly the hottest team on earth right now, but when you look a little bit closer, they've only got one good win, and it was against the Bills, who aren't very good this year. Also, it was in London. I'm taking the 49ers -3 against the Jaguars. Said it in the last segment. Trevor Lawrence has thrown 9 touchdown passes all season through 10 weeks. The league leader has more than double that. Trevor Lawrence is not the guy. I'll continue to bet against the Jags. They have one good win all season. Then again, the 49ers, their really only good win came against the Dallas Cowboys. So this to me is going to be the bowl of teams who I come on the show next week and call a fraud. At the end of the day, I'm going to go with the Niners -3. I think the Jags are more fraudulent than the Niners. And I think Blech Purdy does better than Trevor Lawrence on Sunday. My next pick. Give me the Pasternaut getting points. Vikings +3 at home against the Saints. Love a home dog. So does Jason. But I love what Josh Dobbs did in this offense last week, and another week of him is just going to be better for Minnesota. The Saints have not been good this year. They've struggled mightily. I don't even know why the Vikings aren't favored in this game at home. The only reason has to be because Kirk Cousins is still out and Justin Jefferson is not back yet. I still love the Vikings, and they're getting a field goal. Give me Minnesota +3 at home against New Orleans. My next pick, the Detroit Lions, the Grit Factory, -3 in LA against the Chargers. Now, you'd normally say that the Chargers are the home team in this matchup, but there's no such thing as a home team at SoFi Stadium. The Detroit faithful are going to pack that thing out. It's going to basically be a home game for Detroit, and they'll roll over the Chargers in this one. I might alt this up to 7. I love the Lions in this spot. Give me Detroit -3 in LA. My final pick is one I've been waiting to make for a few weeks at this point. Give me the Arizona Cardinals at home as a 1.5 underdog against the Atlanta Falcons. This is strictly a Kyler Murray bet. We saw the Cardinals be decently successful at the beginning of the season with Josh Dobbs. Now they're putting Kyler Murray in that same team. They're going to have a lot of success, and the Atlanta Falcons are an absolute dumpster fire right now. This is something we haven't talked about enough on the show, but Arthur Smith, what are you doing? You spend the 7th overall draft pick on Bijan Robinson only to give him 0 touches within 10 yards of the goal line over the course of the last 3 weeks. I don't get what Atlanta's doing. They're a mess at quarterback too. Arthur Smith is just not the coach. Atlanta's going to need a new guy before next season, and they're not going to win this game. Cardinals, give me the Cardinals on the money line, but for the sake of the Page versus the Prince, we're going to go Cardinals +1.5 at home against the Falcons. Bonus pick! Colts Patriots over 43.5. We love the germ over here. What? Love the germ over here. Neither of these teams play defense. Mac Jones is going to march down this field on that Colts defense, and Gardner Minshew might throw for 400 yards in this game. Give me the over 43.5 in Germany between the Colts and the Patriots.
Oh, God, I don't know what you're thinking, but all right, it's where you want to go. Sam Yarnell, ladies and gentlemen. Sam, have a great weekend, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
Jason, I'll be back on Tuesday. Catch me at Monday Night Football on Monday night.
That's right. You will be. I won't talk to you on Monday. You'll be back on Tuesday. That's right. I forgot you are going to Monday Night Football. Have a good time with that. Have a great weekend.
See you next week, Jason.
All right. We'll just kill your feed, and then I'm going to switch the camera shot. Cool.
All right, man.
Thanks, man.
I'll talk to you later.
All right. Be well. Texans coming hot. All right, we say goodbye to Sam Yarnell. I'll tell you who I like this week. 4 picks, 2 totals, 2 spreads. Let's start with the Bengals. -6.5 is Cincinnati in this game this weekend against the Houston Texans. Texans coming high off that win. This is still a young team. This is still a team that's learning how to win. on the road in this spot. I love the Bengals. They're playing their best football. They're one of the hottest teams in the league right now. A chance for them to make another statement about the fact that they are one of the teams to beat in the AFC. They're 5-3. They still got a shot at the AFC North. I love the Bengals this week, -6.5. The Seahawks, this is a get-right game for them. -5.5 for Seattle this week as they take on the Commanders, who we know have been struggling, played a lot of close games, but this feels like the perfect bounce-back, get-right game for the Seahawks this week. At home, Geno and company, -5.5. I love that spread as well. All right, Jags-Niners, under 45.5. I don't think there's going to be a ton of offense in this game. We know how good the Niners defense is, and the Seahawks, they've been particularly good in the red zone. They bend, but they don't break. I love this game to go under 45.5. I have been nailing totals lately, and it's because I've had confidence in the under. It's a defensive year around the NFL. Take the under in this game. Titans and Buccaneers is another game where I like the under. 38.5. You still got Will Levis, who's learning how to play the game. A tough Buccaneers defense. Baker Mayfield in that team. Another team that struggles in the red zone. Kicks a lot of field goals. You know what that adds up to? Under. 38.5, your total there. The Bengals, -6.5 against the Houston Texans. The Seahawks, -5.5 against the Commanders. Both of those teams at home. We love the Jags-Niners under 45.5, and we love the Buccaneers and Titans to go under 38.5. All right, stick around. We'll wrap things up with some odds and ends. Get you off into the weekend. That's what we do here on the Sports Wrap. All right, getting set to put the wraps on this baby. Get you ready for the weekend. If you're not already subscribing to the podcast, make sure to do so. It's available on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcasts. You can subscribe. The live video is available every day. I shouldn't say live. The live-to-tape video. We tape the show every day and then air it all in one piece. It's also available over on my X feed, formerly known as Twitter, at The Back Page, on YouTube, the Decibel 88 page, on Facebook. Just look for Jason Page or the Decibel 88 page as well. Where else can we get it? Oh, Twitch, Jason Page 77. Is my name there. So lots of different ways to consume this program every day. All right. Before we go, some odds and ends to wrap it up. Giannis Antetokounmpo scored 54 on Thursday night, and his team lost. I think he's only like the fourth or fifth player ever to go for that big a number and have his team actually lose a game. They lost by a couple, I think, to the Pacers, if I'm not mistaken. That's one odd. How about this? Caitlin Clark. You can talk about LSU and you can talk about Angel Reese. And yeah, she's got a national championship, so that's certainly something that isn't anything to sneeze at. But Caitlin Clark, she is the star of college basketball. She is the it of college basketball. 80-76, her Iowa Hawkeyes beat Virginia Tech in battle of number 3 versus number 8. Clark had 44 in the win. Now, let's be honest. If we're going to talk about this, we got to put it all in context. She was 13 of 31 from the field. It did have a bit of a Kelly Leak feel to it. For you younger people, go check out the Bad News Bears. You'll understand who Kelly Leak is. 13 of 31 shooting on the night. She was 13 of 17 from the line, had 5 threes. Last year's AP Player of the Year. Still doing great things this year. I'm very curious to see how her game translates when we get to the NBA, though. Is she going to be able to do the sorts of things that she's doing now when she gets to the NBA? That remains to be seen. I say NBA. WNBA, sorry. When she gets to the WNBA, when she's playing with others who are the greatest in whatever school they went to, how is Caitlin Clark? Is she going to be Diana Taurasi? Is she going to be this player that plays for, a long time? Taurasi's obviously a bit of a freak of nature. The fact that she's still playing, what feels like, 15, 16 years, something to that effect since she got into the league. I mean, she's an outstanding player, but Can Caitlin Clark duplicate that success when she gets to the WNBA? We're going to find out soon enough. Anyway, she's a blast to watch. 2 great performances last night. One from Giannis, his team didn't get the win, and one from Caitlin Clark. Her team certainly did get the W. That's going to wrap it up for this week's edition of the Sports Wrap. Glad to have you all with us. Thanks to our guests for coming on all week. Thanks to you for watching. Thanks for listening if you're doing it on the podcast. Thanks to Sam Yarnell. We'll catch you back here on Monday after Week 10 in the NFL. We'll see you then.